Welcome to Season 3 of Soccer Over Gotham, an NWSL podcast covering New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. Hosted by Ruby Pinto and Gary Gibson. Welcome to episode 74 of Soccer Over Gotham. Again, we have another great show for all of you. Gary, please tell us, what do we have in this episode?
We got a lot of pride in this episode. We'll recap an incredible night, Pride Night, Red Bull Arena, and a 1-0 loss to the Wave in front of 15,000 plus fans. Midweek Challenge Cup game against the Pride has been rescheduled. We'll give you the latest. Multiple Gotham players won NWSL awards this month, and it doesn't stop. We got another one this morning. We'll preview this matchup this Sunday against the Dash. Our guest this week is truly a unique voice in this space. Theo Lloyd Hughes covers Houston soccer. I can't wait to get his perspective on Amoros and the Dash. But Ruby, let's just get started. There's a lot to get through. How are you?
Yes. Hello. I am doing good and happy to be back with another episode. And again, we're going to talk in this episode about Gotham and the game against San Diego Wave. But first, we have to talk about this crazy smoke in the tri-state area. It was so crazy yesterday. Today is much better. But yesterday, it was terrible. It was like, I don't know if you watched this show, Manifest, but I just finished like Manifest the day before this smoke happened. I was like, what's going on? Is the world ending? What's going on? But crazy thing is at work, we have maybe like 7 different buildings. And I was in the office yesterday, and it just kept getting worse and worse by the hour. And I was sitting in my desk, and I kind of smelled like smoke inside. But I didn't pay much attention. I was like, well, it's so strong outside that it's probably like, you know, when you open the doors, whatever is coming in. This guy that works in the buildings comes to me and my colleague, and he's like, oh, this building here is the only building in campus that has to work 100% with outside air. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it has to work with 100% air from outside because we have labs in this building. So that's why we can't change any like settings or whatever they do. So that was around lunchtime. Later on, like around 1:30 or 2, I started to get a headache. I was like, maybe it's just getting in my head because he told me that the building works with outside air. But then I started looking around and I was like, it looks kind of hazy inside the building too. So I asked other people around and they were like, yeah, it's kind of hazy. So, and I was getting a headache. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to ask to go home and just finish my day from home. Thank God that, you know, I can work from home when I need to, but they prefer us to go into the office. I came home yesterday because it was terrible. How was your day over there?
I'm in the Lehigh Valley area, and it felt like, you ever wear those glasses where you're blocking out the blue light from your computer?
Yeah.
It's like has that yellow haze to it. It felt like I was looking at that. Remember that picture of like what color is the dress?
Yeah.
I was looking at like that all day. We got it first, but we didn't get it quite as bad. It was bad here, but not quite as bad by you. So, but the pictures at RBA looked like something out of like a dystopian movie. The scale of air goes from like 0 to 500, and like 0 to 50 is good, and like 150 is where it starts getting bad with respiratory issues. That's kind of where it was around here. Is about 200 to maybe 300 around here, but around New York City was getting high like close to 400, and that's where like they say you should cease all physical activity outdoors. And at one point, New York City was considered to have the most polluted air in the world because of this. So it's pretty crazy, and then. Obviously, at this point, the fires are still going in Canada. There's over 400 fires. Half of those are considered uncontrollable.
Wow.
And right now, it just depends on where this airstream puts us, because it could come back anytime. And it's craziness.
Yeah, where I live, it almost touched 400. It was like 390 something. Oh, it was crazy. I never seen anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, my poor asthma cat was having a rough time of it.
Oh no.
Yeah. She's better now. She's running around. Let's talk about where we're here. Pride.
Yes.
All right. Once again, happy Pride Month to everybody.
Woo. Yes.
Red Bull Arena sits a half hour away from the spot where Pride began. Stonewall Inn was a haven back in the 1960s for the city's gay, lesbian, transgender community. The Stonewall Uprising was one of the first major protests and a catalyst in the fight for gay rights movements. 1 year later, from the day of the uprising, at the same spot began the first Pride March. So, among those who participated in the uprising were activist Marsha P. Johnson, who was a Black transgender woman and a revolutionary LGBTQ plus rights activist. She later established the Street Transvestite, which is now Transgender Action Revolutionaries, called STAR. It's a group committed to helping homeless transgender youth in New York City. And also there was Sylvia Rivera. She was a Latina American drag queen who became one of the most radical gay and transgender activists of the 1960s and 70s. She was a co-founder of the Gay Liberation Front. So LGBTQ plus rights are once again under attack. It's important for us all to come together and support each other, to protect each other. And as the TIFO says, have pride in each other.
Yes, that was a wonderful tifo, by the way.
It was.
Yeah, I got there a little late because there was crazy, crazy traffic at Red Bull Arena. I left my house an hour, a little more over an hour before the game. I was like, like I'll be there a little early. I have a 30-minute ride. Wrong. My 30-minute ride turned into like an hour and 20 minutes. About, yeah, an hour and 20 minutes. So I
Yeah.
didn't get to see the TIFO in person, but the pictures were wonderful. And like you said, right now it's a time where LGBTQ plus rights are under attack. We've seen what's been happening in Florida and other states. They're trying to push for all these laws. It's so important to have allies and everyone that support the cause. I and believe that in equal rights to stand up and go out there. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Gary.
Yeah, Pride Night is very important to all of us, and it's good, and it makes it such a fun match, and it's always a good time there. But what an atmosphere for this match against San Diego! This felt
Yes.
like a playoff game. I mean, everybody was having a great time. It was perfect weather, and they were fans, Ruby, in the upper bowl, which was craziness.
Yes.
And also, there was a bunch of celebrities in the house. I think Chelsea's coach was there, Sam Kerr was there, I think, and Vlaco, I think, was in the house.
Yeah, we had a lot of celebrities, like you said. And I was next to Stacey London, co-host of What Not to Wear. And don't kill me, guys, but I had to Google that because I had no idea who she was until Jenna was there, and she was like, "Oh, Stacey London is here," and I was like, "I don't know who Stacey London is," so I felt kind of guilty for not knowing. So I googled her, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I was just standing next to her like a couple minutes ago." But
Yes.
anyway, like you said, yeah, lots of important people there. Like you mentioned, Sam Kerr was in the house. Owner and New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy was also in the house, and I get to see Blanco. He was walking around. I didn't get to talk to him because he had a lot of people around him, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's get ready, y'all. Episode 75 is coming next week. It's craziness. So it's fitting to have our mid-season award show with best friend Jenna Tinelli next week. So go follow us on Twitter this week coming up. All week there's going to be fan polls. Make your voice heard. It's at Over Gotham Pod. We are 40 followers away from 1,000, which is a lot for a podcast of our size. So it's so much fun over there. It's a community. Come join us.
Yeah, we're definitely gaining momentum lately, and which is amazing that all of you guys are supporting us. So help us get to 1,000 followers, both on Twitter and on Instagram.
Yeah, you're killing it over on Instagram. I see those graphics that you're making. They're incredible. You're leveling
Right?
up like every other day. So what other kind of content you can find over there on Instagram?
But yeah, like you said, yeah, I'm leveling up. I downloaded Photoshop and I'm reminiscing because I used to do a lot of Photoshop stuff back in when I was a teenager. So I was like, all right, let's dust these skills off and do something. And some of these graphics are really incredible. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. We post there important updates, Gotham news, new episodes that drop. We have post game conferences. And the best is we have exclusive Gotham FC interviews and content. You will not find these videos anywhere else other than Soccer Over Gotham. So make sure you follow us for exclusive content. Last game, I had the opportunity to talk to the power couple, Ashlyn Harris and Ali Krieger.
Let's get to some team news. NWSL Best 11 for the month of May. Lynn Williams, Jenna Neiswanger, Bruninia, and Abby Smith on that list. Very good for them.
Yeah, a lot of Gotham players there. We have 4 out of the 11. That's amazing.
Yeah, and Neiswanger is named NWSL Rookie of the Month.
Ooh, I'm telling you, all she needed was to get some goals for people to notice her. And I've been rooting for Nightswonger since day one with Gotham. Look at her.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing amazing.
Yeah, and this happened today. Abby Smith wins yet another Save of the Week.
Woo!
This time, she shares the award with Bruninia with that double save. It was really nice.
That was really nice. That was incredible. That was an amazing teamwork from Abby and Bruninia, that save.
All right, let's get to the midweek game. The midweek game against the Pride has been postponed. It is now going to be replayed on August 8th, 7:30 p.m. All the tickets for that match are going to be honored for the August 8th match.
Yeah, and like we were talking earlier, yeah, they canceled it because of the air quality here in New Jersey and New York. And this was the right call to postpone the game due to the poor air quality. So thank you for the NWSL and Gotham for doing that. Safety of the fans and players is first.
Yeah, it's rough. It stinks that they have to hold on as long as they do before calling the match, because I think everybody
Hmm.
knew that they were going to postpone it. But it's still, as a player, you're still getting ready for that game just in
Yeah.
case, and you're doing your game day routine, you're in the zone, and you're doing, and all of a sudden you're like, I know this is getting canceled, but is it?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It's not good for the players. They did right by canceling it, but they should have done it earlier. All right, on to the game. First place again on the line as a very good San Diego Wave side comes to town. Gotham has yet to beat the Wave in 2 attempts. On the injuries, so coach said both Midge and O'Hara are close to returning, but unsure of the exact timeline. They were on the injury list also for the Wednesday match as well. Taylor Smith was not in the 18. Looks like they were just managing minutes because she was not listed on the injury report and was not listed on the injury report for the Wednesday match either, so just a mystery. The formation this game was a 4-4-2 diamond, which is important. We'll get to that later. Sheehan and Williams up top, Mewis, Fairley, Long, and Ryan in the midfield, Neiswanger, Jean, Krieger, and Berninia across the back, and Abby Smith in goal again. Ruby, any thoughts?
Another interesting but strong lineup against San Diego Wave. I'm so happy to see Sheehan earned another start with Gotham this season. And I can say with confidence now that we will see more of Sheehan in the next games to come.
Yeah, another pretty strong lineup. I'm curious what the coach sees in the Jean/Krieger partnership over the Krieger/Edmonds partnership. It seems to be his preferred pairing. Edmonds and Krieger are similar players. I get that. So, as the conductor of the Ellie Jean hype train, and obviously a big fan of Edmonds, I'm happy either way. It's just interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But like you mentioned before, Taylor Smith was not in the 18 for this game. And I have to say that I missed Taylor Smith in this game. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Hopefully she's there next game.
Yeah, she's a game changer. The first half of this game is all Gotham. It is 60% possession. Another really good coach team is unable to move forward. Gotham has only been scored on once in the first half in this season. It was during the Challenge Cup. Right side of the field was really good here. Lynn is shutting off wide service to Morgan by closing down service to McNabb. Bernina was just effortlessly navigating traffic and just showing off some really good defensive timing on her tackles. She's becoming a complete player.
Yeah. First half clearly belonged to Gotham. Really good performances by Lynn Krieger, Abby Smith, and Berninia. And speaking of Berninia, she was doing really good and she had really good head-to-heads with Jacobson on the field.
One side note, I don't like talking about refs, but I have to mention this because it was just interesting. The side ref, because I'm in 106, so I'm right there watching the side ref go back and forth. There were 2 or 3 offside calls that were so obvious that
Yeah.
the ref just had to put up her flag. But she waited until she got all the way to the end line to make the call. And what that does is it puts Abby Smith in a position to put her body on the line.
Hmm.
And it's not fair for the players to have to go through that when it's such an obvious offside call.
Exactly.
Yeah, around the 30th minute, the head ref pulled her aside, and then she started raising her flag. earlier in those on those offsides,
Yeah.
but it was really frustrating. Krieger, Abby, even Kristen on the sideline was kind of yelling at her, like,
Hmm.
you can raise your flag anytime.
Yeah, for
But
real.
yeah.
And I don't know, and I don't want to assume either. I don't know, like, if she was waiting for someone to tell her on the little earpiece that they
Mhm.
have, like, hey, this was offsides. I don't know if she was waiting for that, or like you said, they were clearly offside. So why wouldn't you just put the flag up? But yeah.
Yeah, if it's close, you're supposed to let the play, run out and then check the VAR. But
Hmm.
this was like they were 2 feet behind the defense when the ball
Yeah.
was played. So it's like, okay, that's a little silly. But halftime, the only downside to having 15K fans in the arena is the lines, lines, lines. I was a couple seconds late getting back to my seat. I heard a cheer that was not loud enough to be a Gotham cheer, but it was noticeable, and I was like, "Oh no, please not be Morgan, please not be
Yeah.
Morgan." I didn't get to see the replay until I got home, but it just looked like it was a great ball, and Nicemonger just gets physically beat to the ball. She's not a very physical player. She's still learning the outside back defensive part of the game. She's mainly there to provide service, but that is the risk you run when you play a forward to transition to the back line. That's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah. So sorry you missed a goal. I hope your food was worth it. What did you get?
I ended up with just fries because like every other line was just too long. So
You
yeah,
better
no.
hope you enjoyed those fries.
Yeah.
anyway, anyway, San Diego Wave just took Gotham by surprise at the start of the second half. Literally caught Gotham off guard. And Gotham has to stay alert at all times, especially when you're going against a team like San Diego Wave. It just took a moment. Like in a moment, San Diego just took the lead. And the good news, like you said, we did not get an Alex Morgan show this time.
hmm Gotham is having trouble breaking down teams when they are bunkering in. So Gotham has been handling teams that have been coming out to play. San Diego scoring first, basically sat in the rest of the game and just dared Gotham to beat them, and
Hmm.
they couldn't. It's harder to press teams whose keeper has a distribution of, Sheridan. Scoring first, as we said many times in this podcast, is going to be the
Yes.
key to Gotham's success. On to player notes. Ali Krieger was phenomenal in this game. She was matched up 1v1 with Morgan, who is a handful, and gave her nothing. The entire game plan for the Wave was just to feed Morgan in the first half. Krieger had her in her pocket. It felt like a playoff game, and Ali was up for the moment.
Yeah, Krieger's ability to shut down Morgan was just impressive. We know the damage Morgan can do if you just let her, and Krieger did exactly what she needed to do to keep her quiet.
Yeah, the only ball that Morgan got on frame was the one that was over the shoulder of
Hmm.
Ellie Jean. Anywhere near Krieger, shut down. There was also a great double save, as we talked about earlier, by Bernina and then Smith. So I can remember thinking in the moment, I was like, can they both get save of the week? Turns out they can.
This is awesome. And, it feels like Gotham has been winning a lot of these. And as much as I like Gotham to win Save of the Week, I personally prefer for the team to claim Goal of the Week.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's get on to some of our takeaways. Gotham has to be better on set pieces. Another 8 corners and multiple close set piece opportunities, just not threatening. Just floating the ball right in Sheridan's path over and over again. I mean, we talked about this last week. It's definitely an area of concern. So when games
Mhm.
are in the balance, set pieces are so important.
Yes, absolutely. We were spot on about the significance of set pieces, especially if they are playing a team like San Diego. Set
Mhm.
pieces are important and can often be the turning point in matches. Maximizing these opportunities, more threatening chances, and increases their chances of converting.
Yeah. When San Diego was just closing down, it was really hard to break them down. Set pieces are the only way to get through. But Ruby, it's funny. You know how I manifested last week a goal possibly from a center back,
Yeah.
possibly the center back? There's proof that Krieger listens to the show. Early in the game, she made one of her first passes out of the back. She just made a 60-yard run early in the game, all the way up to near the number 9 and was just asking for the ball. And then late in the game, she ended up getting a header or two on frame. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be right. I'm going to be right.
Oh my God. Just keep manifesting. But, it would be really cool to witness a Krieger just score a goal before her retirement.
Yeah.
And let's keep our hopes high and just keep envisioning so it becomes a reality.
Yeah. All right, go to our Twitter page, people. After each game, I post a post-game stats thread highlighting some of my favorite stat accounts. A lot of the people in our world, and then people that post the stats are doing this for very little. So
Mhm.
go support them as much as possible. I love doing that. Gotham is smothering top teams. Each week, our opponents' pass maps are getting more and more fractured. San Diego was forced to one side towards Williams, and Gotham liked the matchup of Ali on Alex, and San Diego had no connections from their center backs or their keeper to their defensive midfielders, their pivots. So good job by the midfield. That diamond in the midfield was really good. They couldn't play through them.
Correct. And this match on Sunday between Gotham and San Diego was pretty even. Both teams performing well. It could have easily ended in a 0-0 draw. Otherwise, yeah, it was a close game.
Yeah, ultimately, 3 top 5 teams, 2 on the road, 1-1-1. I'll take it. We belong here.
Yeah, I'll take it. Absolutely, I'll take it. The team's performance against the top teams in the league, especially on the road, that just shows that they have what it takes to compete at the highest level. And mark your calendars because Gotham will have another opportunity to win on the road against San Diego this time, August 19th.
Yeah, see if we can get our first win against them. We'll see.
Yeah.
Post-game quotes, Amoros says Gotham dominated in the first half and San Diego was not finding their success in their usual style. Gotham lacked the bite in the final third. After letting the goal in, San Diego took the lead. Gotham threw everything at them, but just could not find the equalizer, but they were just not effective.
Yeah, this game we did see that on the final third. They were lacking that bite, like Amoros said. We have had this issue before, and they just need to start scoring. We have good strikers. We have Williams. We now even have Bruninho scoring goals. So Gotham just needs to start scoring, and hopefully we can claim again the top spot.
Yeah, I think Amoros summarized our entire show in that one quote. But I'm also going to insert audio from Krieger talking about playing in front of 15K fans.
Incredible. This is what a footballer wants to be a part of and wants to play in front of all these fans. I mean, it keeps us motivated. This is why we love what we do. I don't like walking out into an empty stadium. I can tell you that. None of my teammates do. So walking out tonight was really incredible. And that is just such a reward of all the hard work that the club, the front office, and the marketing team has put into the season. And then for us, more importantly, we need to keep winning for people to be in the seats, and that is something that we're trying to control out of what we can control as players.
If you want to look at the video, we also have it on Soccer Over Gotham on Instagram.
And she's right. That's what they play for. It was exciting, and yeah, they deserve that. So hopefully we get more of those going on. Amoros says that McCall Zerboni gives a lot. She can engage the crowd, game well, recover the ball, and take shots. She says she does a lot of stuff to stay fit, and only 2 appearances away from 200 shows her work. She always wants to get better, even as a veteran player.
I really like Mikal Sorboni. Like we said before, Gotham didn't have a really good season last year, and Sorboni didn't have a good season last year. But you can see the difference in her this year and this season. She looks determined. Her mindset just so sharp. I love her. Every time she goes onto the field, she gives 110%, and I love to see her play.
Yeah, she's been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to talk about that, she's a game changer. Every time she steps onto the field, the momentum of the game shifts a little bit.
Yes.
Gotham's able to hold the ball a little bit better, make smarter passes, and it just control the game a little bit better. She's been really good in her role as a 20, 30-minute sub. I hope that she gets a full start maybe on the next time they get a Challenge Cup game, or maybe even this weekend. We'll see what happens. But Ruby, any stat of the game?
Yes, so stat of the game for Gotham against San Diego. They had 15 shots. Oh, and 7 of those 15 were blocked. So unfortunately, San Diego did a great job there. And I'm also going to keep mentioning the corners until they actually score on a corner. They had 8 corners in this game.
Yeah, San Diego was, I think that's a very telling stat. San Diego was very bunkered in, and it was just, Gotham's taking a lot of shots from outside the 18 because they just could not get in that box.
Yeah, they have a solid defense, and Girma, she's a beast.
Absolutely. 2 games in a row. The Wave completed only 66 passes in Gotham's half, and Gotham completed 213 in the Wave's half. Gotham is really imposing themselves on the opponents, and as we always say, possession means nothing if you can't do anything with it. And as an example, during the Courage versus KC game, at one point, the Courage had 70% possession and were getting outshot 10-0.
Wow.
And they ended up losing that game. But you can have all the possession in the world. It only takes a second, as we see here, to change the momentum of the game.
Yeah.
It only takes one shot. Let's get to Player of the Week on Twitter at OverGothamPod. Fans chose Krieger. Thanks to the fans who voted. Do you agree, Ruby?
I totally agree. Krieger did a really great job keeping San Diego away as much as she could. Plus, she even tried to score. So, hell yeah. Krieger is the one. What about you?
It's been really hard to get these lists down to 4 people. Williams and Smith could have made this list. I apologize to anyone who wanted to vote for them. But it's Krieger. What a match she had. Morgan again got only 3 shots off and only 1 hit the target. She took it personally. After last season, this is the result that I wanted. Thanks, Captain.
Exactly. We have to remember that, last season when we were playing the Wave, Morgan just was having a goal fest every game against Gotham. So yes, a 1-0 score, it's actually a win for us this season.
Yes, agreed. All right, let's get to some league news. The National Women's Soccer League and Central American broadcast partner Tigo Sports announced today that a first of its kind Spanish language broadcast to be made available to viewers in the United States and Canada at no cost on watch.nwslsoccer.com. This season-long program will showcase 2 regular season matches per week in addition to the UKG NWSL Challenge Cup playoffs and the NWSL playoffs presented by Bud Light.
I honestly, I am so happy to hear this news. It's fantastic to see that one of the aspects discussed in the past weekend with Ashlyn Harris, which is visibility and investment, is coming to fruition with this deal with Tigo Sports. The recent televised Gotham game provided nationwide exposure to the team. And now with this announcement, we are gaining visibility within the Latino community as well. And it's just a wonderful step forward in expanding women's soccer reach and connecting with diverse audiences.
Agreed. Let's get to the standings. This is how tight the standings are. Gotham is now in 4th place, was in 1st, and now they're in 4th. They are 2 points from the 1st place, so they could essentially jump back up into 1st place. However, we're playing the Houston Dash, who is number 6th, just making it into the top 6. They are 2 points behind Gotham. Gotham could either jump to 1st or possibly jump below the line in this game, after this game. So it's pretty crazy how tight this is right now.
Yeah, I prefer them to jump to 1st.
Yeah.
But we remain one of the top 5 teams in the league, which is incredible. And Gotham just needs to keep pushing. They're only 3 points away from 1st place, so just keep pushing.
This Sunday, it's going to be a hot one. Houston, mid-90s. It's looking like it's going to be 92 degrees at kickoff. Historically, this is an even matchup. It's 7-3-7 overall. Right now, Houston isn't scoring, but they aren't giving up goals. So they're 11th in goals per match scored, and they're 1st in clean sheets. Gotham is the league's top road team. Lynn has a chance to extend her tally in the Golden Boot race, thanks to Ali Krieger shutting down Morgan. Although unlikely, Gotham can retake 1st place.
Yes, this is going to be an exciting match. It's going to be exciting to see Gotham reclaim that one spot in the standings. Gotham didn't play Wednesday, so they had time to rest a little. I know it is brutal to have a game and then travel. So we didn't have a game, so they got a little bit of rest there.
Ruby, any thoughts on this matchup?
Like you said, this one's going to be a hot game. And I think it will be key to pressure high and have control of the game. Another important key is to take advantage of set pieces like we've been talking.
Yeah, the heat is going to be a real factor in this one. It's going to be really hard for this team to keep up pressing for 90 minutes. I expect Gotham to just go for the kill early and then try to absorb. I think scoring first, as we always talk about, is going to be the key here. Gotham will be rested, and I hope to see this team really go for that first goal, get a lead, and just shut it down, get out of town. So what are we manifesting this week?
For this week, I just want Midge to come back. I kind of miss her on the field, honestly. What about you?
I want to see Iffy get a start.
Yes.
Any random thoughts?
I was listening to the Snacks podcast before we recorded, and it was amazing. They had Emily Fox, but the funny thing, not funny, because it's not funny, but Lynn Williams was talking that she broke her finger in the last game. So yeah, she broke her finger. And I noticed because they were like spraying that little thing. I think that's the thing that numbs you. They were spraying it on her finger. I saw it on Sunday. And yeah, her finger looks ridiculous. It's like huge. It's crazy.
Yikes.
Yeah. Like she just gets hurt. Like her arm, now her finger.
Yeah, what a warrior.
Yeah. Any random thoughts from you?
I do. We'll stay on the subject of podcasts. I don't know. Maybe I did recognize it. My brain is no good right now. Sinead Farrelly was on a podcast with Brianna Scurry called the Counterattack Podcast. And Sinead is telling her story up to present day. And it's one thing to read about it, but it's different in audio. It's what makes this medium so powerful and emotional. Hearing Sinead in her own voice and her own words is something different. It's an incredible journey, and I'm just in awe of it. And I'm just here for Sinead reclaiming her power. I'm just so proud of her.
Yeah, I actually listened to that one as well, and it was really cool. I really like that podcast. The style is a little different, kind of like documentary like. Really liked it. Where she tells her story. Her mom's there. Her best friend is there talking in this podcast. And I think there will be a part 2, right?
I'm not sure if there's going to be part 2, but there's definitely another episode coming. There's 5 so far. I think there's a 6th one. And they release something like every week. So I think next week might be the last one. But definitely go listen to it. It's worth it. Again, you may have read it before, and it may be hard to listen to, but it's worth listening to. She's an incredible person. And yeah, it's just amazing story.
I know. And just going back to that podcast, when she was saying how that soccer was one of the things she wanted to reclaim as hers again, and just wanted to come back because she didn't want to give up on the sport that she's so passionate about. I think that really hit me like wow, like this person went through this horrible thing while she was playing soccer. And the love of soccer is greater than everything, the struggles that she go through, and she came back, and now she's finding joy in soccer. Well deserved.
Yeah. And speaking of her story, one of my favorite soccer moments covering this league, I was sitting in the media section, and this was the Courage against Gotham. The media section was pretty empty. It was just me and a couple other people. And one row up from me and maybe 2 seats over was Meg Linehan. And then 15 feet in front of us stood Paul Riley. And if I'm correct, this was the day before or 2 days before the Athletic piece dropped.
Yes.
And Paul had already been informed that it was coming. And just being in that moment, putting myself in Meg's shoes, that must have been incredible. Like I couldn't imagine what she was going through on that day.
Yeah, I remember that too. After it dropped, I was like, wait, we just saw this guy like not too long ago. Yeah. Like you said, yeah. I cannot imagine what Meg was thinking in that game. And she was about to expose him.
Yeah, she knew all that stuff was sitting like, less than 15 feet from him. Incredible. All right, let's get on to our interview. Some of our interviews are going to be a little bit longer than others, just because our guests are so interesting. Honestly, this has been one of my favorite interviews. I learned a lot from our guests, and Theo was really good. He's got a super interesting story and voice in this space, And I can't wait to share with you. We go really in depth onto his time with Amoros, the Dash. Then we get into his personal story at the end, which is also incredible. Let's just go talk to Theo, shall we, Ruby?
Let's go.
This week, one of my favorites, I see you on Twitter and I have to jump on and see what you're talking about. One of my favorite people in this space is Theo Lloyd Hughes. He's a freelance journalist who covers the NWSL, writes for the Striker News and the Equalizer. Just a terrific resource to get us caught up on the Houston Dash. So welcome to the show, Theo.
Hello. Thank you so much for the lovely intro, Gary. And likewise, when I see Soccer Over Gotham on my feed, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day.
Yes, it's always a good day. You got a really unique voice and perspective in this space. I can't wait to get into their backstory, get into the Dash, and just dig into your experience. So we're going to jump into some rapid fire questions, just some quick one-word answers or the first thing that comes to your mind. So what is the last live music that you saw?
Oh, Gary.
I know you got a kid. That's hard to do now, right?
I know. I have a 9-month-old. So it's definitely if you could see my social calendar, it's wide open. But that being said, I actually had a friend who was playing bass in a band called Sun June from Austin, Texas, and they were on tour, and they came through town, and it was really good to see them. And I went to the gig, and my wife looked after the baby. So that was about 6 weeks ago. Yeah, Sun June from Austin on tour. Go check them out.
Absolutely. So what are you nerdy about outside of soccer?
Coffee.
Okay. All right. So teams you follow outside of the Houston Dash?
Queen's Park Rangers, the only team there is.
There you go. All right. So TV show or movie that you've probably seen too many times?
The Simpsons.
Okay.
The Simpsons, probably. Yeah. A lot of episodes, though, so too many. It feels like you can always find something, but yeah, definitely watched it a lot.
When this team loses, it always brings you joy.
Chelsea Football Club. We'll watch them lose all day.
Okay. Candy corn, yes or no? That's a Jenna question.
It's a no from me.
Oh, that's some fighting words for Jenna. All right. And you wouldn't be here in this space without this person.
My sister, probably.
Okay. Let's move on to our next segment, which is going to be on coaching. Since we have a common coach, a common coach.
It's a big week. It's a big week.
Yeah,
it's the Amoros derby.
It is. What was your impression of him last season? I know you saw him in limited role, but what did you learn about him, his coaching style, and what was your takeaways from him?
I really love Juan. Matt, and that's a strong word. But Juan, very charming guy. I don't know if you've had the delight to talk to him, but I feel like the vibe I get is he's going down very well in the Northeast. But he's a lovely guy. He's very personable. He's very, very generous with his time. And I think from the word go, the situation he was coming into in Houston with James Clarkson suspended and the interim Sarah Loudon doing a very good job, but Sarah had very much said, hey, I don't want to be doing this role right now as the head coach. I would rather stay in my assistant role. And the club president, Jess O'Neill, taking a very long time to kind of scout the right person to steer the Houston Dash through that kind of tricky 2022 season. Juan was coming into an interesting spot, and he'd come, from 10 years at Tottenham Hotspur and 2 years in Spain, where he'd done really well, but I think he'd kind of always been taking these smaller clubs and sort of punching above their weight, maybe would be the way he'd kind of, his role as a coach in Europe was to sort of take not necessarily the best players and coach them up and make them better and kind of punch above their weight. Mm-hmm. And, here he was getting his first job in the NWSL. So I think when he comes to Houston, he knows it's a big deal. He knows this is such a kind of moment in his career, and he really grabs it by the reins. And I think he did that wholeheartedly. I think he got really close with the players, got really close with the fans. Like I said, very, very generous guy with his time, very personable. And so I think it was infectious, and you saw that in the results. Like you said, only 11 games, and the first ever playoff game in club history. He also coached, so it was short, but it was very, very sweet, and his energy was just sort of infectious. And I think it really fed, like I said, into the club, into the players, into everywhere, and it felt like the beginning at that time, the beginning of maybe a long relationship, which it didn't turn out to be.
Yeah. And now you've transitioned to a new coach, Sam Leahy. So how do you think about his transition so far in his tenure? And what do you think he excels at, and what do you think he could be better with?
Sam's a really nice guy as well, and someone who's been around the league a long time, sort of the opposite of Juan in that respect. This is someone who has seen what the NWSL was 10 years ago, and the way it treated players and the way it compensated players in the resources and facilities that were available. And this is someone who has coached, some of the best players in the world, some of the best teams this league's ever seen. So I think Sam was coming in with, better expertise and better experiences than almost any other coach you could get. What Sam hadn't done really was been the top dog. He hadn't been the number one. Juan, at the point that he was coming to NWSL, had spent, years and years, being, the very near the top of a football club, and had traveled the world. Sam's, was in Seattle for 20 years, did a lot of academy stuff before being in NWSL, and then was a number 2 at the ORM for 10 years. So he'd really dialed in his role, and was, was famous and acclaimed and brilliant at what he did in Seattle. And, I think you've got to hold that up, that some of the best teams this league has seen, and some of the best players have really worked with Sam Leahy. But I think he's had to learn what it's like to be a number 1, and I think he's done pretty well. I think, Houston are, I would say, right where they want to be, or right where they, need to be in the table. I think there are maybe a few top clubs like your Portlands and your Seattles, who are expected to be in that 1 and 2 slot. But then, it's a bit of a free for all. And so if the Dash are in that conversation with Gotham and the Spirit and the Wave and whoever, I think that's where they want to be. I think that the form's picked up more recently. And I think what you saw early on in the season was Sam not really knowing how he wanted to play his team, who he wanted to play. He's to be fair, he's been unlucky with injuries. So I think there's a little bit of, some things were out of his hand. But I think you also saw a first-time head coach who, wasn't sure exactly what he wanted his team to look like, what his trainings to look like, what his substitutions to look like, when he's the one having the final say, how he wanted to game manage. I think there are things that he was still figuring out about himself, and that maybe bled onto the players and also bled on to the beginning of the season. Everyone's a little rusty. Everyone's a little nervous. The season's just taking shape. And I think the Dash in those early games just weren't really at their best in terms of intensity, in terms of decision-making, in terms of strategy, almost sometimes too many ideas. It wasn't through a lack of, Sam's a very intelligent guy. He really knows he's a very good tactical brain, but I think sometimes there was almost too many formations in a game, too many ideas for the players to sink their teeth into. But that's changed. I think the last month, they've looked really, really good. And you've seen Sam start to build up players' confidence, start to bring in players that maybe weren't starting at the beginning of the season, and start trusting them and saying, hey, if we're not playing well, that creates an avenue for players who weren't starting. And I think that's something, he probably did in Seattle, but you're seeing that kind of first-time head coach get a little bit of consistency and say, this is what it takes to be a starter. You can earn that job, and here you are, you're earning it. And, now you're going to play week in, week out. And so the last 4 games, I think you've seen Sam find his best team, find his best practices, and he's really shown to be a canny game manager and tactician in this league. And it's been a really good month for the Dash. But I'd say it's been a sort of hot and cold start to the season. But I also think, it's June. You don't want to peak in June. So I think they're in a good spot.
And speaking of figuring things out, he inherited a really good player in Salmon, and she had a terrific run last season. And now he has Ordonez added to the roster, who's also a fantastic player as well. But it seems like there's a struggle between getting them both on the field at the same time and producing. What do you feel is the solution to that, or is there a solution to that?
That's the $1 million question, Gary. I mean,
gotcha.
It touches on what I was saying about him maybe throwing a lot of paint on the canvas or having almost too many ideas earlier on in the season. I think when you do have an Ebony Salmon who scored 9 goals in 11 games last year, big mid-season transfer to make up for the departure of Rachel Daly. And then you go out and get, arguably one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen the NWSL with Diana Ordonez. It's almost sort of too many riches. And maybe there was part of the thing was they thought Salmon might be in the England team. And so they wanted to have, a very, very good number 9 in Diana. But at the end of the day, they had 2, starting number 9s. And Gotham's maybe seeing a little bit of this right now with Lynn Williams and Ife Onumonu. Sometimes, this league is so loaded and the best players in the world want to play here. And so, these teams are just stacked. And so at the beginning of the season, Leite tried to make it work with the 2 of them. And I think most people probably thought he'd play a 4-4-2 or a sort of non-symmetrical 4-2-3-1, and you could have them both fulfilling central areas, but maybe Diana would be dropping off and Ebony would be trying to run in behind, sort of making sure that you get Diana on the first ball, Ebony on the second ball. It's all about that first contact. And then, you play a little and large, you can go in the air, or you can, play it on the ground 10 yards in front of Ebony and she'll win that race. So that was kind of sort of the theory, maybe pre-season, but it kind of turned out that Leite really is favouring a 4-3-3. And in that 4-3-3, Ebony gets shifted out wide. That's a new position for her. It's, different for Ordonez, not playing with a true winger. She's playing with a forward who's on the right-hand side. And, their best games, it didn't really look like they were connecting as well as they should. And I actually spoke to Diana and she was pretty upfront about it. She was like, new team, new positions. We don't really know each other that well yet. You got to give us time. And that was sort of what we were hearing. But like I said, as things started to click in Houston, it started to click when the 2 of them weren't on the pitch at the same time. So Ordonez gets COVID, Salmon comes in, she gets to move into that preferred central role. And on that night, she scores the winner against Portland. And that sort of, then puts Salmon ahead of Ordonez. And Leite says, okay, I'm going to keep the 4-3-3 and I'm just going to have one of them. So the next game, Salmon starts, Ordonez is on the bench. She gets the hold-up place. The Dash don't play very well. It's a tough one against the San Diego Wave, as you found out at the weekend. Really, really rigid, very, very good back line. Salmon has a duff night. And then the next week, Ordonez is back in the number 9 role. And that's sort of how it's been for 2 weeks. Back-to-back wins. Ordonez gets a goal up in Kansas City, does really, really well, showing that she could be a very, very good hold-up player. Actually had a lot of chances the other night against Orlando and didn't put them away, but looked really, really on it. And I think you're just seeing right now a straight-up competition. There's one number 9, there's one central forward, and it's either Ebony or Diana. And, you're going to battle for it. I think a lot of Dash fans thought coming in that there was a prognosis, a solution, a formula to get both of them on the pitch at the same time. But right now, success, winning, picking up points, it seems to be either or.
And what is Groom's status? I think she's obviously very, very important for this team.
Yeah, well, it's tough timing. This Monday or Sunday, this weekend, was it Monday today? So yesterday, Shea Groom confirmed that she's having surgery for an ACL tear that she suffered on Friday afternoon. Brutal. And I think Shea has been such a huge part of Houston the past few seasons, and she does something which I think is really hard to find in midfielders in this league. But it's just hard to find it, all over the world. She's a midfielder who is very, very good at timing her run into the box, and she can be that extra body. She can create the overload, and she's very good in the air, even though she's 5'7". And I think she will be missed. I think she had an MCL tear during preseason, so she hasn't played at all. And then to get that to end her season prematurely, I think it's really tough. And I think it loses. There isn't really anyone that can play that role in Houston. Like I said, there isn't that many other kind of midfielders who press high, win the ball, and can burst, or like I said, can kind of make a sneaky late run into the box. So there isn't really an easy way to replace Shea Groom. Joel Anderson's been playing the role as the kind of defensive 10 or the kind of breakaway midfielder, and she's a young player, second ever season as a pro, and she's doing all right. But I do think it's a big loss. It's a big loss.
And going into this summer, possibly the transfer window's coming up, what is something you think this team should look for?
I mean, you just mentioned it. I think the number 10 or the kind of attacking midfielder is definitely, there isn't a lot on this team, in that position. Barbara Olivieri is really raw. She's sort of the other option, as well as Joelle Anderson there. I really, really like Olivieri. She's actually from a suburb of Houston called Katy. And she went to the stadium growing up. And I think she's sort of the first generation of players who, you know, grew up with the NWSL and grew up seeing professional women's soccer and thinking that could be me. And so I think she's a really special player for this club in general. But even more so, you know, she offers something which I don't think anyone else has in this team in central areas, which is, you know, that little bit of magic, loves to shoot from range, can definitely get into the box when she needs to. But, you know, the physicality of the NWSL, scanning the pitch for, you know, where the pressures are going to be, where the threats are going to be, her defensive work rate. I think these are things which, having played in Liga MX Femenil previously, I think is a step up. But really, really talented player. I would be interested, actually, if the Dash were going to kind of go off-piste in the summer window, would be looking at some attacking midfielders from Liga MX Femenil. I think Kiana Palacios from Club America, who actually was drafted by Sky Blue, I think, back in the day.
Yes, you're correct.
And Christian Yaramillo, I think, from Chivas. They would be two players. You play on the Mexican national team, which has been, you know, somewhere the Dash like to scout from. Maria Sanchez, Diana Ordonez, Emily Alvarado. There's a lot of Mexican nationals there, you know, American Mexicans. But yeah, I think it would be cool to see maybe the Dash look at scouting one of them and bring it in a little extra firepower in midfield.
What are your thoughts are to this game coming up against Gotham? What do you think is the key for Houston winning this game?
Well, can I fire a sneaky kind of like sub question back at you before I say?
Sure.
What's the mood? Like, because I feel like, you know, talking to a few people this week, I feel like Dash fans are seeing this as a big game. Maybe because it's a home game, so it feels a little bit more like, you know, every home game is a big game. But I think seeing Amoros come back to Houston is playing on a lot of fans' minds. Is that the same? You know,
I think that's the same. Gotham just went on a gauntlet. They just played 3 top 5 teams, went 1-1-1, and in each one of those games, they imposed themselves. They had most of the possession. They had teams pinned in for most of the games. I feel like even the results being as they are, I think Gotham is pretty confident at this point. And I think they can. Houston is always a tough place to play in the summertime. Always. It looks like to be 95, I think, by game time or something.
Should be illegal.
Yeah, right. But so I think Gotham is riding pretty high, and I think it's going to be a fantastic, energetic match.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. I think if it's energetic, I think Gotham will win. I almost think the key, like a bit like we saw at the weekend where San Diego really took the sting at that game, I think the key to the Dash is to not make the error, you know, not blink first against Gotham. I think Gotham have been very, very good this season. Look, you know, they've been right up there. But if there's any way that Gotham have maybe struggled this year, it's when they haven't forced the other team to make the mistake. And then when they're not in the driving seat early, you know, how can they turn the game on its head and kind of twist the knife when you have to dictate play for longer periods of time? I think the Orlando game was a great example of that. You know, it felt like they missed a couple of chances early. And then I really only remember that game for Abby Smith's fantastic goalkeeping performance. And it felt like every single set piece, you know, Orlando looked really good. They just couldn't get one in the back of the net. And I think set pieces will be really interesting if the Dash can survive that, you know, the first 30 minutes where Gotham will press you really high. I think, you know, the game could be decided on set pieces, which the Dash have been very good at recently. Katie Lind, I think, has been really, really strong, you know, very, very good aerial presence. And I think she could be a decisive factor on Sunday, attacking and defending set pieces. So I think really it's just about doing the simple things right for Houston, because Gotham has so much talent. You just don't want to give them, you know, a sniff. And I think if a misplaced pass or feeling a little bit pressed at the back, I think is really where the game is going to be decided. Because I think if the Dash go toe-to-toe with them football-wise, they might get picked apart. And I think what the Dash have done well, a bit like Gotham, is sometimes the Dash have struck early and then played really, really well on the break. That's what they did against Orlando at the weekend, and it was just perfect game management from Leite, setting his team up. They got the goal, first goal off a corner. Maria Sanchez has fantastic delivery, and then they just sat back and said, okay, we're going to ask you to come on to us, open up space a little bit. We're going to conserve our energy in that Houston heat. And then Michelle Losey scores a beautiful breakaway goal on the counter-attack with Orlando pushing up and creating that space. So I think that first goal is crucial on Sunday. I to be totally honest, I'll be amazed if there's more than 2 goals in this game. I think it'll either be 0-0, 1-0, 1-1, or 2-0. I think it's going to be a 2-goal game, and I think whoever scores first is either going to win 1-0, 2-0, or draw 1-1. I think it's going to be really narrow, and I think it will come down to probably errors and concentration. I think that's where it's going to be, because I don't think the Dash are going to give up much space, and I think they'll be happy, keeping the ball in front of them and saying, "Come and beat us," which is a little bit of what San Diego did, I think, at the weekend. Once they had that lead, I think Gotham found it hard to unpick them, and they played a lot of passes that weren't necessarily dangerous. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really tight game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, let's get into your journey. Your journey is interesting. Tell us a little about your journey. Like, where did your love for soccer come from?
I mean, it feels like it started when I was, a baby or just a few years old. I come from a big family. I have a lot of siblings, 2 older brothers, a younger sister, 2 more half brothers. And so my father had us into football from the word go. My brothers were playing. We had season tickets at the local club, Queen's Park Rangers men's club. And from the word go, it was just football, family football, completely intertwined. And I remember one of my earliest memories, which isn't necessarily a happy memory, but I was about 3 or 4 years old, and my 2 earliest football memories are both at Queen's Park Rangers Stadium in London, England, Loftus Road. And one of them is I cut my lip on the staircase for my brother's, must be my brother's like 8th birthday party. And he's a bit older than me, so I was like 3 or 4. And I slipped on the staircase and I cut my lip on the way up to the like private room they had at the stadium for his cake and friends and stuff. And I can vividly remember this kind of like weird, being in a weird space and being in pain and feeling very vulnerable and scared as a child. And then also being about the same age and my dad taking me to the football, and we were playing Coventry City, and asked to leave at half time. And my brothers were so angry at me. And again, I sort of had these, which I guess, for a lot of football fans or all sports fans, pain, emotional trauma, therapy, it all kind of rolls into one. So I feel like my earliest memories of football are sort of upsetting my father or my brothers in this sacred space and sort of having a faux pas of not wanting to be there or causing myself physical harm. And that's sort of my earliest memory. But, listener, it did quickly soon turn to joy and obsession. And it kind of, I think that's sort of where it starts, is Queen's Park Rangers, and then, all sorts of football, early World Cup memories, Euros, Copa America, watching anything and everything. And then the women's game a bit later, although, as I mentioned, very lucky to have my younger sister Flo, who played a lot of women's football growing up, was lucky enough to be kind of in and amongst Fulham Football Club, which in the late 90s, early 2000s was sort of a real hub for early women's football in England. And so we were really lucky to be watching sort of Rachel Yankee in the early 2000s, and then some more of those kind of England players we know now in their early teams coming up in the 2010s. So definitely a bit of exposure through the kind of England national team early, but women's league football a bit later.
And what was it like playing soccer for you where you grew up?
It was everything. I mean, it's funny talking to Americans sometimes. I think it's almost like if you're into football here, you're either really good or it's sort of like you were funneled into it, but it felt very innocuous. Like I was terrible at football. My older brother was an absolute star and played on like a million teams and traveled. My sister was playing for QPR women and was taking it very seriously. So I was sort of like the bad one, but I played football every day. Every day after school, we were in the playground or on the grass in the park. I played for my school team, and so I was rubbish, but it was sort of my life. And so I think that's kind of a common story if you grow up in England or maybe a country where like football is life. It's just kind of, even if you're bad, you just keep hacking at it. So I played football, from the probably about 5 or 6 until I'm still on a Sunday league team now. I play every week. So playing football was always so much fun. I loved it. I loved that feeling of it's 3:50, 4 p.m. on a weekday and you're leaving school and you kind of text your mom, you're like, I'm going to be home an hour early, and you play in the park for an extra 2 hours till the sun goes down, and you and your mates all kind of sweaty in your school uniform, and you're getting a packet of crisps. And there's something really romantic about it. It was just, I don't know, this little activity that you could play anywhere with a ball.
Yeah. And soccer gives something different to everybody. Like for me, again, it was like a safe space for me. When I was on that field, I was free for 90 minutes. I didn't worry about family, friends, anything. It was just, I was in control of my life for 90 minutes. So what did soccer give to you?
I think it gave social, like it gave, for me, it was about the community. It was about, having that time away from school or home with friends where you could talk about whatever and you could express yourself in different ways. And I think it gave me, I think with my father or with my siblings, it gave us again, like places where we could all be together. My parents got divorced at a very young age. But my dad always had those season tickets, and like my mum was always really cool with him coming around the house and picking us up and taking us to games. So I've often thought about like what my relationship would be like with my father without football, and my relationship with so many people, my siblings, my friends at school, the people I know now, people I know around the world, you, Gary, the lovely Jenna Tonelli. Football is communication, it's language, it's community. And I think that's what I always go back to.
Yeah, it's a universal language. You can go anywhere on the planet.
Exactly.
You're plugged in.
No, it's so true. I think anytime you travel, you know somebody don't speak the same language, but you can bring that player up, or you can, the word for sort of a certain move on the pitch or something, and they'll connect with you, or a World Cup goal or something.
Yeah. I got my first pro-ish contract when I was just traveling around. I just showed up to a field, I saw the team practicing. I went, hey, can I practice with you guys? I practiced with them. They said, hey, when can you come back? It was just crazy. That's what it is. Like where you go in the world, there's always an opportunity to play soccer. And it's, again, universal language. It's the best thing in the world.
Well, wait, where were you when that contract got handed down?
I was in Belize.
Belize. Wow, that's, yeah. Can you let me know what podcast episode we go deep diving on the Belize stories? We
do need to do that. We definitely do. All right, one of these days we're going to go into.
You're burying the lead here, Gary. But yeah,
yeah, that was the best couple months of my life. I was just doing it for fun. It was just amazing. I played on top of banana fields and next to blue waters on top of Mayan ruins. It's craziness, but I think I got to do that.
Your Belize is like the park across the road from my high school. That was my stadium. That was my banana field. So I wasn't good enough to play in Belize, but I feel you on what the romance of that situation.
It is. So you're a little way from home. So you're in Houston, Texas. Yeah. How did you get from where you were to where you are?
Yeah, it's, it seems kind of simple, but also, every day, or not every day, every few days I'll have a moment where I'm like, where am I? How did this happen? But even now, I've been living in the United States on off for 10 years, very permanently for 7.5 now. But I studied abroad. It's a sort of classic story. I was at University of Sussex in Brighton, right where the Brighton Stadium is actually. I was attending that university when they were building that stadium. It was amazing to be a part of. I got a lot of love for Brighton and Hove Albion. So I was living in Brighton, and I did a study abroad at the University of Texas in Austin. And I met my now wife there. We were in the same cooperative housing dorm. She was a sophomore. I was a junior. And yeah, it just sort of changed my life forever. I really fell in love with Austin and Texas and her, and sort of decided to give it a go, for sort of lack of a better phrase. And I was sort of young and I came back and finished university in the UK, and just thought, this is what my heart wants, and why not take the risk? I'm not going to regret it, even if it doesn't work out. And here I am, 7-8 years later, and I've got a baby, and I'm still living in the US, and we're still in love. And I'm thankful that I can have football in my life, even in the South.
Yeah. And why women's soccer? So what got you to covering women's soccer? Was it your sister? What was it?
My sister definitely, like I said, played a big part of it. When we were kids, she had a lot of early exposure to women's football, and I think broke a lot of barriers, even if it was subconsciously for me, for just like the importance of women's football, the brilliance of women's football, the technical side, how hard they work, going to her games, hanging out with her coaches and friends, watching, like I said, those early England teams under Hope Powell with Rachel Yankee. I think it always was something that really clicked. And I think the 2012 Olympics being in London was another kind of big moment. Remembering some of those games, that Japan team, like that was a big kind of exposure again to sort of the wonder of it. That USA-Canada game, I think, and at Old Trafford was another one that really stuck out as sort of making you stand up and just go and just kind of your jaw dropped. And that made it something that I really wanted to get into. I originally was a music journalist, actually. That was sort of my first stab kind of post-university, during university. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. I was writing about football, mostly men's football, a bit at university. And I had a few podcasts. This is 9 years ago now. And then I got into music journalism. And then I kind of came back to football, and specifically women's football, probably like really after during the 2019 World Cup. That was sort of the turning point of me being like, I want to cover this. I want to tell these stories. I want to take this a bit more seriously, rather than just kind of texting my friends about it or writing a newsletter or kind of doing something more private for people I know, and wanting to take it more seriously. So I think the 2019 World Cup was a bit of a turnaround. I started watching the NWSL in about 2018, sort of the season before, mostly through players like Sam Kerr, Rachel Daly, who was obviously local at the time. Really kind of, that was sort of my gateway into it, and that was the first time I watched the NWSL, was 2018. But yeah, I think the 2019 World Cup was sort of a wake-up call to take it more seriously in a kind of journalistic endeavor.
And how do you see your role in covering women's soccer?
I mean, that's a great question. I feel like it's not perfect, and there isn't necessarily, not that anyone's job is perfect, but there's not a lot of room for sort of professionalism in covering the sport. So I think it's a good question to ask, like, what is your role? I think for me, it's all about, telling stories. It's about detail. It's about trying to give the game the same integrity and attention that any other sport anywhere else in the world would have. Because it's there. Not only is the quality so good, and so lucky to be in the US where the best players in the world play, but there's so much beneath the surface. There's so much these players have to say. There's so much going on the pitch. There's so much talent. Again, I keep saying story, but you could take any of these teams and you could shoot a documentary, have 3 local journalists, really digging into what's going on behind the scenes, who these players are, what's happening on the pitch, why the coach made this decision, etc., etc. And I think when you see that there's right now that's sort of absent, or it's being mostly held up by a lot of unprofessional creators and journalists, you definitely are like, I am here to try and help this ecosystem of storytellers and podcasters and tacticians and TikTokers kind of give this league what it deserves. I suppose that's sort of where I see my role. I see my role as a storyteller, but it definitely can put a lot of pressure on you to be like, how can I do everything? How can I hold up everything? How can I, pay my bills? How can I give these players what they deserve? How can I not, sometimes I feel like not to get too off topic, but like sometimes I feel like my role isn't to like puff up this league and be overly positive. And I think, Sophie Lawson wrote a great article about this, about like toxic positivity. And I think we have to see our roles as, holding this league accountable, or holding the sport, to positive and negative lights when coaches make good and bad football decisions, and kind of giving this league the professional treatment of analysis that it deserves. So yeah, what is anyone's role in the kind of journalistic side of the NWSL is definitely come under a lot of scrutiny recently. But I guess I just try to be a nice person and try to tell stories in the simplest answer to your question, Gary.
Yeah, that you nailed it. That is exactly what we're here to do. We're here to tell stories. And it's different because when I got into this, like, obviously women are superheroes. I looked up to my mother. She was a superhero to me. And I saw her struggles, as just being a woman, and just being able to like get to know some of these players. And like I had this conversation before, but if you're talking to maybe say a male soccer player, that's all they know. Like, they've been playing soccer since they were born. There's no other avenues for them. They just That's all they do. That's all they do. It's all they know for a lot of them, right? But some of these women are so multifaceted, so incredible. They have to be 10 different things besides a soccer player. Just look at Midge Purse. She's creating a TV show. She spoke at the White House. She's on the Harvard
on the
board
at
of
Harvard
something.
or whatever.
Yeah. And it's incredible how like just the range of a human being can be. And it's that's what tells an incredible story, does it not?
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, I think there's also the kind of the other side of that mirror, if you like, where you think, wow, what if these were just athletes? I use the word just, which is sort of a cruel word, but sort of I think there's also the other side of we need to focus and be laser tight on these athletes, because sometimes we don't talk about their athletic technical endeavors enough, because they're always superheroes in the White House. And I think that's also the balance we're at with the NWSL. It's like, how do we need more people, because there's so many stories to tell. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. Is I want to hear all about Midge's Purse TV show. I also want to hear about her left foot and why, how she's rehabbing her hip, and how she feels about probably not making USA team. And there's Midge is a great example of someone you could write 10 essays about during the season, but there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah. Speaking of so many hours, sadly, this is the end of the interview. I got through about half of my questions. So
I'm a talker. I'm a talker, Gary. I'm sorry. No, I keep wanting to let you talk more.
No. This is what I'm here for. I'm telling the story of Houston. So that's what we're here for. But the problem here is that Gotham doesn't play Houston for the rest of the season unless we meet somewhere along the Challenge Cup line. So I'm going to invite you back on. So during the World Cup, we're going to skip our interview segments for that, and we're just going to cover the U.S. Women's National Team. So I would love for you to come on and help us cover the U.S. National Team.
Gary, huge fan of your work. Huge fan of the airwaves that you find yourself on, and I'd love to be there.
It's a deal. All right, so Gotham returns back to action this Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, away at the Dash. Again, it's looking to be about 90-95 at kickoff. It's going to be a hot one. Yeah, I'm ready for this matchup. You ready, Theo?
Yes, please hydrate, drink lots of water. Bring your friends and get some shade. But yes, enjoy it. Get out there.
Let's go. I had 9 hours of sleep last night.
Wow. That's amazing.
I haven't had 8 hours of sleep this entire year so far. So my brain is like, I want to do everything in the world in
you feel invincible right now.
I do.